I read 25 books in 2025. Let me show you all the ones that I read and some of my favorites. So the first book that I read in 2025 is More Days at the Murasaki Bookshop. It is a very cozy sequel to the Days at the Murasaki Bookshop, which I read, I think, like a month before this one. And it's so good. It's about a bookshop, as you can see, set in Tokyo. I could be saying these names completely wrong, so I apologize in advance. But it follows Takako and her uncle Satoru. Her uncle owns the bookshop, and you just get to see the life of a bookshop owner in Tokyo. You're following the main character as she's navigating life, navigating romance. It's a very cozy read, a very well-written book, and I really enjoyed it. This was a solid 3.5 stars for me, which is really good. Just not like a fave. The second book that I read was The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis, and this is part of the Chronicles of Narnia series. This is the first time that I've ever read it, which is so crazy to me because I love fantasy worlds like Narnia. So reading it in my adult life, I actually really enjoyed because you got to see the way that C.S. Lewis weaves in Jesus and the whole gospel story into his stories. I loved reading these books in my early adulthood. I read 5 of these in 2025 and 2 like a month or so before. I also read Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, and The Last Battle. If you've read Narnia before, you might be thinking I read those out of order, but I actually have a different book. Let me just show you. This is actually how I read the Chronicles of Narnia, and as you can see, it's all of them put together into one book, which I actually really enjoyed reading because it was really satisfying to read a book this big, even though there's 7 books inside of it. It says on the back of this book that the books are presented here according to Lewis's preferred order. I didn't read them in the same exact order as probably most did, but I really enjoyed the order that I read them in. This whole series was definitely a 5-star series for me. I can't believe it took me so long to read it, but it was amazing. Highly recommend. The next book I read is Ready or Not by Kara Stone, which I loved because my name is Kara and that's how I spell it. You're following the main character Eve, and she loves her life very steady, very stable, and nothing really surprising until she has a one-night stand, which is usually not what she does, and she ends up pregnant. So you're following Eve as she is going through this new change in her life. She has the support of her best friend Willa, and Willa has been trying to have children, so there's a bit of conflict there. I think this book did a really great job of exploring deeper themes and harder themes. And then of course there's a romance aspect of it with Willa's older brother Shep, golden retriever kind of guy. So Shep has always been friends with Eve, but now he's taking on a very protective role in her life now that he knows she's pregnant. And then, things just happen from there. Such a good story, very well written, and I loved it so much that I tabbed it a lot. I also had tabs that matched the color of the book, so that was just euphoric. There was a little bit of spice in this book that was pretty easy to skip. So all in all, super cozy read, super lighthearted with being able to explore those deeper themes. So really great book. The next book I read is by Lauren Graham. In conclusion, don't worry about it. And this is actually an expansion of a commencement speech she made in 2017. Super small, very quick read. And I loved every second of it because I love Gilmore Girls and I could just hear her talking in this book in my head, basically. This story is really just telling people that you are enough with or without the big accomplishments that you should have accomplished by now. You are enough before and after you accomplish those things. So don't put too much stress or pressure on yourself. It was really good. A solid 4 stars. Now we are getting into some of my favorites. This one is the first 5-star of the year. It is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Yes, I know there's so much talk about this book already, but I had to just give it a try, and of course, it's amazing. I do know that Caraval, the trilogy, takes place before this book, but I did not know that when reading it. So this book follows Evangeline Fox. She's in love with this guy, and he is set to marry someone else. She makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts to stop the wedding, and she has no idea, but there's going to be many, many consequences that follow. This book was just so full of twists and surprises that I was just not expecting whatsoever. I loved it. It kept me hooked until the very last second, and then I ordered the book at like 2 a.m. the day that I finished it. So if that says anything, this book was fantastic. 5 stars. So good. The next book I read was, of course, the second book in that trilogy, The Ballad of Never After. And I really can't go into much detail because I don't want to spoil the whole story, but this one was also very good. There's just so much magic and fun story, fairy tale elements to these books that I loved. Pretty sure I gave that one 4.5 stars. Not as good as the first, but that's expected. I still loved it. So I did take a break from that trilogy to read Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers because some sweet friends of mine decided to read it together, and it was phenomenal. It was a very hard read, I will say. Like, there are aspects to this story that's just just tough to read about. Francine Rivers is a Christian author. She wrote this book trying to illustrate the story of Gomer and Hosea from the Bible. It was so beautiful because the main character is just lost and full of sin. And then the man who is the love interest in the story, he is just captivated by her. And the Lord is telling him that that's your wife. He goes after her again and again and again. And it's beautiful because it illustrates Jesus' love for us. Jesus is illustrated by the man in the story, and the world is illustrated through the woman full of sin. It's truly the name of the book is Redeeming Love, and that is Jesus to everybody. It was such a beautiful story to read because it really just illustrates the beautiful love of God to us, the selfless, faithful love that he has for us. This was another 5-star read for me. So good. Then we have a very major genre shift, but this book came out, so I had to read it, Sunrise on the Reaping by Susan Collins. This story followed Haymitch, and I'm sure many people watching these videos will know the Hunger Games, but we go back in this timeline to read about Haymitch's games. I love the Hunger Games. I've read every single book from that series so far. Hopefully she keeps writing them because they're fantastic. But this book was more tragic than I expected it to be. I know Haymitch's story and like who he turns out to be. I was still hoping for a little bit more resolve in his life. So I gave it like a solid like 3.75, maybe even a 4. Like it was still very good, and I just love the story and the world that this is in. That was my take on it. Then I finally got around to reading the last of the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and I really enjoyed this trilogy. Like overall, a solid 4.5 stars for the whole thing. This was a crazy story. I really enjoyed it. I will say I was just bummed that we didn't get more time with the main characters together. Like that's what you're rooting for the whole time. I won't say much more because of course I don't want to spoil anything, but that was my only thing. I really did enjoy this book a lot. It was crazy, really good twists and turns, and of course it was still in the wonderful, magical fairy tale world. So I really did enjoy it. I think I gave this one 4 stars. A very solid trilogy overall. Then I found out I should read Caraval. I should have read it first, but it's okay. I then read Caraval. I really loved this first book. This one was so good, and I just love Stephanie Garber's writing. It's very whimsical. I love how she does similes and metaphors. This one here is just so beautiful. She disappeared like a broken star, leaving the world untouched, save for the bits of missing light that no one would ever see again. What? Like, just stuff like that it's so out of the box and whimsical, magical. I just love how she writes. This book takes place in the same world as Once Upon a Broken Heart, but it's different storylines, different main characters, although you do see Jax in this story quite a bit, which I was not expecting as much. So in this book, we follow 2 sisters, Tella and Scarlet, and throughout the trilogy, it flips POVs. So this one was through Scarlet's POV, the next one was through Tella's, and then the last one was kind of a mix. This book I loved. It was very carnival-y, Caraval, you know. Basically, Caraval is a once-a-year faraway performance that happens, and it's very rare to get a ticket to it. So Scarlet had been writing letters to the master of Caraval for years until he finally wrote her back saying that he wants her to come. And you can participate in the show. You can't tell the difference between what's real and what's fake, and it's just a very exciting page turner throughout the whole entire story. This one was crazy. The ending was crazy, and I just loved every second of it. This is a solid 5 stars for me as well. This one I also really enjoyed. This is the second one called Legendary, and this one is through Tella's eyes, the other sister, and it was very intriguing. The story was also very similar to Caraval because we're back into that games aspect of it all, and I really enjoyed this one as well. Not as much as the first one, and I won't say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything, but this one is like a 4 star for me. Then we have the finale, which I did not enjoy nearly as much. So this one was quite different than the first 2 books. This one is going dual POVs between Tella and Scarlet. It's not as much of Caraval or the games that I really loved, so I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was back into that games mystery aspect. It was still good, and I really enjoyed the trilogy, but I definitely think this one's probably a 3 star for me. Then there is a novella. I keep like throwing my books around. The next book I read was the novella after Caraval, and it's called Spectacular. This was the first ever novella that I've read, and I love it because it's just a short little book, and this one was so beautiful. So you can see the illustrations throughout the entire book. Very much so enjoyed the Christmassy illustrations. The book, however, I did not love. It was a very strange story. It's more so Tella's romance. You don't get much of Scarlet and her romance. It was just kind of strange. I don't know. The vibes were a little weird, and I was like just a little creeped out by what was going on. Honestly, this could be a 2.5 stars for me. It wasn't terrible. It was just a little bit disappointing as to the story she decided to go with for this book. But all in all, she's a great writer, and I really enjoyed basically all her books that I've read so far. I still finished it, just didn't love it. Okay. This is another 5-star book. This could be one of my new favorite books. I read The Life of Pi by Yann Martel. I'm so sorry. That was probably so wrong. But anyway, The Life of Pi. This book, oh my goodness. It was fantastic. The way this book was written was through the perspective of a writer. And so at first I was like, oh my goodness, is this a true story? It's not. But I've never read a fiction story that opens as if it's telling a real thing that happened. And so that was just fun to read because I was like really engaged into it. And it opens with this writer interviewing Pi, who the story's about. And it goes into Pi's perspective for most of the book, but you also get part of the writer as well. Pi is on this cargo ship with a bunch of animals because his father owned a zoo. And they were transporting the zoo, and crossing the Pacific, the cargo ship sank. You see Pi on this lifeboat with a Bengal tiger, a hyena, a zebra, and an orangutan. And wow, this book just so crazy. Some parts of it were kind of graphic, which I was not expecting. Thankfully, not very much at all, but I tend to pass out when it comes to graphic things. Fair warning. This book was fantastic. It had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, and at the end, I was just thinking about it for days, truly. Literally days, weeks, honestly. I was telling everybody about this. I was asking if they've read it. I think they should read it. I think everybody should read this book. So good. But anyway, this book was fantastic, and it just really makes you think, and that's what I loved about it. So 5 stars. The next book I read is Love and Olives by Jenna Evans Welch. Welsh? Yeah. We are going back into the romance section. I really loved this book. This book is more junior romance. The first book I read from her was Love and Gelato, and I loved that book. And this one is part of that same world, not necessarily a trilogy. It's just got some characters that are connected in it. So her books are very lighthearted, but they also still explore deeper themes within the book, which was so good. And this one was so well done. I honestly would read it again right now because it was set in Greece. Imagery was amazing. You felt like you were there the whole time. And there's this like really cozy library place that they stayed at. And I was just like, oh, I want to go there. So now Santorini is on my bucket list. Anyway, so you follow Liv, your main character. What you know about her is that her father fled to Greece when she was 8. And she really hasn't heard from him since. And then every once in a while, he'll send a postcard. But when she was little, they wanted to find the lost city of Atlantis. So that was what they would do all the time together, just her and her dad. And then he leaves just unexpectedly. So then when she's about like 17, she gets this postcard saying that he wants her to come to Greece to film a documentary series about Atlantis. And she's not very excited because she doesn't really know him anymore, hasn't heard from him in years, and now he wants her to come to Greece. So anyway, you follow her story of trying to unravel all of the trauma that happened when her father left. And then also, of course, it's a romance, so there's going to be some cute little romance happening, but it's also very wholesome because it's more junior romance, and you're going to get just more depth with the characters. Anyway, I loved this book, and the twists and like deeper themes that she wrote about was actually very well done and unexpected in this sort of junior romance book, but it was so well written and I loved the romance. It was really sweet. All in all, I really enjoyed that book. It was a solid 4 stars. Okay, this book, this author, are we kidding? This is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And wow, he's just fantastic. I believe he's a Christian author, but he writes about heaven and about religion and Christianity in a way that I've never heard before. And this one takes place following Eddie, an 83-year-old who passes away at the beginning of the novel, which is a crazy thing to start with. But you follow him going to heaven. He meets 5 different people that explains his life and why he was a part of what he did. So it was like 5 people who were affected by him or who affected him, or some things that were just like, you wouldn't even guess that they were connected to his life. And it was fascinating. Of course, I don't believe that he is saying this is what heaven's going to be like, but I think it is a very interesting read, just to make you think. Solid 5 stars. It was so good. This author is fantastic. I was gasping and reading it in like 2 days. Then I read the last book in this little collection that Jenna Evans Welch wrote called Love and Luck. This one's quite a bit smaller than the last one. This one follows Addie, who is visiting Ireland for her aunt's wedding. So Addie's going to Ireland with her brother and her family after just getting her heart crushed by a boy back home. We don't really know what happened until later in the story, but you follow her trying to enjoy Ireland without worrying about everything back home. And she finds a book called Ireland for the Heartbroken, and she goes through it and does what it tells you to do while also enjoying Ireland's beautiful sights. So I really enjoyed this book in the same way that I enjoyed the last. The imagery was so beautiful, it felt like you were there. And then, of course, it's another romance. I really loved Rowan, the love interest in the story. He was very wholesome and just very genuine, and I really enjoyed genuine characters that you can root for. The only thing I didn't love about this book was it seemed like the plot was more for her brother, which was a good storyline. There were some deeper themes that were explored in this book, but I think I wish there was a little bit more resolved between her and Rowan, or just more things happening in Ireland. I still enjoyed it. It was just more of a palate cleanser book for me, so I would give this 3 stars. Okay, this book, The Ministry of Time. So this book is written by Kaylee and Bradley, and it was such an exciting read for me because I had heard so many great things about it, and when I started it, I truly thought this was going to be a 5-star book. The beginning I loved. Okay, let me just get that straight. The author's writing was so beautiful. I just really, really loved how she described things in her mind. So basically, we are following a government ministry called the Ministry of Time that is taking people from the past because they have discovered how to use time travel, okay? They're getting people from the past and calling them expats and taking them into the future and introducing them into the modern world. So that part of it I loved because it was so fascinating. So you're following our main character, who is going to act as the bridge to this expat named Commander Gore. So he is from the past. He is from 1847. He was taken into the modern world, and the main character is acting as a bridge to acquaint him to all the things that have happened since 1847, which is a lot of things. The funny things about this book, which made me laugh out loud, were like his reactions to electricity and how he said, "You guys have harnessed the power of lightning." And I just thought that was so fun to read from the perspective of somebody who wouldn't be used to things in this modern day. That was one of my favorite parts about this book. All that to say, I loved the beginning, and I loved how Commander Gore was experiencing and thinking about the modern day. Towards the middle, I got kind of lost. Maybe this was just me and how fast I was reading it, because I was trying to figure it out and I was reading it quite fast. I got very lost in the whole politics of it all, the whole time travel, and it felt a bit confusing once everything was revealed to me, like at the end. I have such conflicting feelings about this book because I really loved it at some parts and I really did not in others. There was also quite a bit of spice that was just thrown into it, which I did not enjoy. As someone who doesn't read spice, it kind of takes away from the story, and of course that's my own personal opinion. It didn't seem like it was necessary in a story like this, because also part of the plot is the bridge is falling for Commander Gore. Overall, the writing was really good. I loved the concept of this book. I just think it was a little bit hard for me to grasp at some points what she was talking about, especially at the end. Yeah, that's all I'll say. I digress. These are the last 2 books that I read, and they're just so good. It's Abby Jimenez. Okay, we got to talk about her. She's so good. Basically, I read Just for the Summer in 2024, not knowing that it was the last in like a 3-part world series. So again, it's not like a trilogy where it's all connected. It is still in the same world, and I could have known more characters if I read them in the right order. I did not, and I read them in backwards order actually, but I still loved them all very, very much. So I read Just for the Summer and I loved it. That's one of my all-time favorite romance books, like by far. So good, made me cry. Oh, so tender. The way she writes romance books are just so real and just pulls at your heartstrings. It's not super cheesy. It's just like real life situations. I mean, with some embellishments. The character connection feels so much more real than some other cheesier books. The next one I read was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and I just loved this book so much. It follows Dr. Brianna, and she is in the midst of finalizing a divorce, and her brother needs to find a kidney donor. So these are things that you know about Brianna, one of those, sorry. And she is en route to get a promotion at the hospital that she works at, until this new doctor comes along, Dr. Jacob, and she thinks that he's running for the position as well. She gets really frustrated by this doctor because they had a bad first impressions, but then he ends up sending her a letter just explaining what happened on his side of the first impression and how he interacts in social atmospheres. And so then they become good buddies, and you kind of just see their friendship blooming and also the romance blooming because they are the two love interests, of course. It is then revealed, this is not a spoiler, I promise, it's on the back, but Jacob is going to give her brother his kidney. So all of that is what you go into the book knowing, and then you see just this beautiful romance, and it's very deep and it's very tender. One thing I don't love is like tropes where they just don't talk about their problems or their feelings. So you know as the reader like what Brianna is going through in her head and what Jacob is going through in his head, but they're not talking to each other. So that's like one thing I didn't love about this book, is that they could have just talked some stuff out and it all would have been fine, which I know that's a trope in a romance book and that's fine, but that's just not something that I enjoy reading because it's a little bit frustrating. You're like, just talk to each other, like just get it all out there, you know? So because of that, it wasn't a 5-star book. But I still loved it so much. It was a solid 4 stars. I definitely made me cry. It was very good. Definitely some spice in this book, but it is pretty skippable, which was nice. So good. We love her. And the last book that I read in 2025 was another Abby Jimenez book that I actually got for Christmas called Part of Your World. It's actually the first book in that whole Connection trilogy series world sort of thing. It was really fun. I wish I read them in the correct order because of course, then I actually would have known all these characters. But because I had just read Yours Truly before this, I knew a lot about Brianna in this book because she was in this quite a bit. I really enjoyed that part. So you're following Alexis. The main character is this big city girl. She's an ER doctor, works at the same hospital that Brianna does. She is passing through this small town and ends up meeting this man, Daniel, who is 10 years younger than her and very charming and has a baby goat and just like farmer vibes versus big city. So quite Hallmark, but it's cute. I really enjoyed it. It also made me cry. She's really good at making me cry, making me emotional. Okay, slight spoiler alert. Nothing too major, but just a heads up. So something I did not love about this book was that it starts off with a one-night stand. And I was like, okay, what are we doing? Because the reason I love romance books is I just love cheesy rom-coms, lighthearted, also deep themes, like so good. So when they start off with something like that, it just makes me bummed because they don't actually know each other. Is it just because they were attracted to each other? Is it just lustful? That's just not really what I enjoy reading. So I was quite bummed that it started off with that and then it kept going because of the one night stand. That's why they kept seeing each other in the beginning. So that was a bit frustrating for me because I enjoy reading where they actually develop a connection first, actually get to know each other. And it wasn't very skippable because it was kind of just sporadically thrown out into the book. So that's a warning for those who don't read spice. It was redeemed after because then they actually started to build a connection with each other. So I really appreciated how she did go back and build that connection, but I wish it happened before any sort of spice takes place because it just seems that it's lustful. But once you got past that, at least for me, I really enjoyed the connection that they had, and it was very wholesome, very healing for both of them. You go through, of course, some more themes with these characters that Abby Jimenez writes about, and so it was very enjoyable overall. I will say, aside from the opening scenes, I gave it a solid 4 stars. It was still very good, just different than what I usually enjoy. Another book that I read that I actually do not have because I sold it, if that tells you anything already, is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. It was my first ever thriller, first ever Riley Sager novel, and I just did not enjoy it. I finished it because I started to not enjoy it towards the end where it got kind of really weird. Like, I love murder mysteries. I think those are interesting, and I read Agatha Christie. So it turned out that it had a sort of supernatural theme to it, which I was not expecting because it wasn't like that until 2/3 in the way through. It's a thriller, so of course I should have known this, but it was just creepier than I wanted it to be. I think I realized that I don't enjoy thrillers, so that's good. I wanted to try it just because it was out of my genre, out of my comfort zone, but there's a reason that those are out of my comfort zone because I just don't enjoy them. I did finish it because I still wanted to know what happens, and I was so close to being done with it. Maybe like a 1.75 stars. It's terribly low, but it's just not the book for me. I just did not enjoy the supernatural element to it. It just felt very out of place and creepy. So, of course, I know what to expect now going into a thriller if I ever do read one again, but that's just my take on it. That is all. Thank you so much for watching. Those were my 25 books in 2025. Didn't plan that, but I like how it turned out. Please let me know what you guys are reading, what you guys have read in the past year, any books you're looking forward to coming out. And yeah, I'll catch up with you guys soon. Okay, bye! Go read a book!